The sun hung low over the small town, casting a golden glow over the peaceful streets. Life in the quiet town of Havenbrook was simple and predictable, where neighbors greeted each other with smiles, and children played in the streets without a care in the world. Among the residents was Lena, an 18-year-old girl with a bright future ahead of her. She had long, flowing auburn hair, sparkling green eyes, and a gentle smile that made everyone around her feel at ease. Lena loved life. She was always out in nature, taking long walks along the river, or spending hours at the town's cozy little cafe. Her life was full of promise, full of the dreams every young person has before they've tasted the harshness of the world. But that peaceful world was about to be shattered. It was a normal afternoon when Lena didn't come home. Her parents, accustomed to her punctuality, first assumed she was simply caught up with a friend or lost track of time. But as hours passed and she didn't return, worry began to settle in their hearts. Lena's mother, Sarah, called her phone several times, but there was no answer. She tried to calm herself, telling herself it was just a delay, something trivial. But deep down, she knew something was wrong. The town was small, but no one had seen Lena that day. She hadn't been seen walking along the streets, and no one knew where she had gone. Panic set in. As the day faded into night, Colonel Jackson, a decorated military officer and Lena's father, knew he had to act. He quickly began organizing a search with the local authorities. The sheriff's department had a limited staff, but Jackson's experience in the military made him a natural leader in moments like this. Within hours, the entire town was scouring the woods and nearby fields. Every car, every road, every corner of Havenbrook was searched. Yet there was no sign of Lena. The search lasted well into the night. When dawn finally broke, the worst possible news came. Lena's body had been found in a secluded part of the woods, not far from the town. The discovery was chilling. Lena's body lay motionless, her once vibrant skin now pale and cold. But it wasn't just the appearance of death that struck terror into the hearts of those who found her. It was the strange, unnatural signs on her body. There were deep, almost surgical marks on her chest, and what looked like faint, glowing symbols burned into her skin. Her eyes were wide open, filled with an expression of shock and fear, as though she had seen something beyond comprehension. There were no visible wounds from a human weapon, no gunshot, no knife slashes. Instead, there were markings, almost as though they had been made by something otherworldly. This wasn't a typical murder. The authorities were at a loss. There were no witnesses. No one had heard or seen anything unusual. The town was small, and there were no signs of any major conflict. The investigation turned up nothing, just a body and nothing more. But for Jackson, there was no doubt in his mind that his daughter had not died at the hands of any human. Something had taken her life. Something far beyond the understanding of any earthly being. Something alien. The feeling of helplessness gnawed at him. Lena had always been his light, his reason for hope, and now she was gone. But there was something deeper, a cold fear growing inside him. The town had been peaceful, a safe haven from the horrors of the outside world. Now that peace had been shattered, the thought of an alien force coming to Earth was unthinkable. Jackson could barely believe it, but he couldn't ignore the evidence. The police tried to continue their investigation, but they were helpless. They had no leads, no explanation. They ruled Lena's death as a mysterious accident, though no one could explain how she had ended up so far from home. They assumed it might be an animal attack, but Jackson knew better. An animal didn't leave these strange symbols, and no animal could have made such precise wounds. In his heart, Jackson began to realize that this wasn't just a personal loss. It was a warning. Something had arrived on Earth, something dangerous, and his daughter had been its first victim. As the local authorities continued to fumble in the dark, Jackson couldn't just stand by. He wasn't a man to sit back and let events unfold without action. He had been trained for battle, and he would use every skill at his disposal to find out who or what had killed his daughter. One night, while poring over the evidence in his study, Jackson came across something unexpected. Among the files in his office was a video, a footage clip he didn't recognize. It was an old file, heavily encrypted. For a moment, Jackson debated whether to open it, but his gut told him he had to. Lena's death had shaken him to his core, but there was something in this footage that might give him the answers he was desperately searching for. With shaking hands, he activated the video. What he saw sent a chill through his entire body. The video showed the scene of Lena's death. The time and location were consistent with the details of the police report. But the footage wasn't from any human camera. It was something far more advanced. It showed Lena walking along the edge of the woods, her every movement captured in flawless detail. Then something strange happened. A cloaked ship, invisible to human eyes, descended silently from the sky. It was almost like a shadow, moving without a sound, with technology far beyond anything humans had ever seen. The ship hovered above Lena for a moment, almost as if it was studying her. Then, without warning, a thin beam of light shot down from the ship, striking Lena in the chest. The beam was cold, precise, and seemed to pass through her body without leaving any physical mark. Lena's body went limp as if her soul had been pulled from her. There was no struggle, no sign of resistance, just the sudden and complete death of a young girl, under the control of something far beyond human understanding. Jackson sat frozen as the footage played. His mind raced. The ship's technology was something humanity had never encountered. No human military could match the speed or stealth of this vessel. And worse, this was only the beginning. The footage confirmed what Jackson had feared all along. This wasn't just an isolated incident. An alien force had come to Earth, and they were capable of far worse than Lena's death. They had technology that could move unnoticed, strike without warning, and take life with no explanation. And it was clear they were not done. As Jackson leaned back in his chair, a sense of desperation washed over him. His daughter's death was only the start. The alien forces had arrived, and they had already shown their strength. The authorities could do nothing. The military had no answers, and the world was still blissfully unaware of the danger creeping towards them. But Jackson knew one thing for sure. He would stop at nothing to bring the aliens down and make them pay for what they had done to his daughter. He was no longer just a grieving father. He was a man on a mission, and the fate of humanity might depend on the choices he would make in the coming days. With a sense of urgency and anger, Jackson set his plan into motion. This was not just a fight for revenge. It was a fight for Earth's survival. The aliens had made a mistake by killing his daughter. And now, Jackson was determined to make them pay. Jackson's mind raced as the weight of what he had just seen settled on him. Lena's death wasn't just the tragic loss of his daughter. It was a signal, a warning. The aliens weren't here for simple conquest. They were here for something much larger. And they had already demonstrated their ability to wipe out humanity with ease. For the first time in his life, Jackson realized that Earth's military power was no match for this unknown enemy. He could feel the urgency in his bones. Time was running out. If he didn't find a way to fight back soon, the world would fall into the hands of these invaders. But there had to be something. There had to be a solution buried beneath the surface. As Jackson sat at his desk, poring over the encrypted files in front of him, his fingers froze over a particular set of documents. These files, hidden deep within the military archives, were unlike anything he had ever seen before. They weren't modern military records, nor were they anything from Earth's current technological advancements. No, these were ancient blueprints, documents that had been buried and hidden for centuries. Jackson quickly scanned the blueprints, his mind piecing together the strange symbols and technical jargon. His heart raced as he deciphered what they meant. Earth, thousands of years ago, had once wielded an unimaginable weapon, an ancient force created to protect the planet in times of dire need. It was the ultimate defense against any invader. It was called the priime Warbeasts. The documents described these warbeasts as human-like creatures, genetically engineered for combat and designed to be the perfect soldiers. But they weren't just ordinary soldiers. They were enhanced with monstrous strength, speed, and intelligence. The Warbeasts had been buried beneath Earth's oldest cities, hidden away from the world, and sealed in underground vaults to ensure that they would never be used unless the planet faced a threat unlike any other. Jackson's hands trembled as he read. The priime Warbeasts were not mere myth or legend. They were real. They were a product of Earth's forgotten past, a civilization's last hope for survival. And now it seemed that hope was all that stood between humanity and complete annihilation. Jackson knew that he couldn't do this alone. He needed a team, a group of elite soldiers who could help him unlock the Warbeasts and unleash them upon the alien invaders. But he also knew that the task would be dangerous. These creatures were massive, genetically enhanced, and possibly beyond the control of even the most experienced soldiers. The risks were high, but the stakes were even higher. Without wasting another moment, Jackson called upon his most trusted comrades, men and women who had served with him in the most dangerous missions of his career. Together, they had fought against human enemies, but now they were facing something far worse, something far beyond their wildest nightmares. The team assembled quickly, and Jackson wasted no time explaining the mission. They had to enter an underground vault located beneath the ruins of an ancient city, long forgotten by modern civilization. It was buried deep, hidden beneath layers of earth and rock. The vault contained the priime Warbeasts, creatures that had been lying dormant for centuries, waiting for the day when they would be needed to save Earth. The journey to the vault was treacherous. The soldiers navigated through narrow tunnels, their footsteps echoing in the darkness. The air was thick with dust, and the walls were covered in strange symbols, remnants of a forgotten civilization. It felt as though they were walking through the halls of history, through a time when Earth was far different than it was now. After hours of navigating the labyrinthine tunnels, they finally reached the vault. The door was massive, made of a material that seemed to shimmer in the dim light, resistant to the passage of time. Jackson's team worked quickly to crack the code and unlock the door. As the final mechanisms clicked into place, the door creaked open, revealing the vault's contents. Inside the vault, suspended in stasis, were the priime Warbeasts. They were enormous, standing over 20 feet tall, their bodies muscular and imposing. They were humanoid in shape, but had features that were far from human. Massive claws, elongated limbs, and glowing eyes that seemed to pulse with energy. Each Warbeast was encased in advanced armor, designed to protect their bodies during combat. The armor glinted with a strange, metallic sheen, and cybernetic enhancements lined their arms and legs, giving them the ability to move with incredible precision and speed. Jackson and his team stood in awe, their breath caught in their throats. The Warbeasts were unlike anything they had ever seen. They were not just genetically enhanced. They were living weapons, born for one purpose: destruction. And now, they were about to awaken. But Jackson knew there was no turning back. The aliens had made their move, and the clock was ticking. If humanity was going to survive, the Warbeasts were their only chance. With a sense of determination, Jackson activated the mechanism that would awaken the Warbeasts from their long slumber. A series of mechanical clicks echoed through the vault as the creature's stasis chambers powered up. Slowly, the Warbeasts began to stir. Their massive claws twitched, and their glowing eyes flickered to life. The ground beneath them seemed to tremble as they moved for the first time in centuries. One by one, the Warbeasts stepped out of their chambers, their powerful bodies flexing as they adjusted to their newfound freedom. They looked around, as if trying to assess the situation, before turning their gaze toward Jackson and his team. The sight of them was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. The Warbeasts were pure power, living embodiments of destruction. They were designed to be the perfect warriors, with enhanced reflexes, strength, and intelligence. They could think and plan like humans, but their instincts were primal, honed for the battlefield. Their armor glowed with a strange, ethereal energy, and they moved with a silent grace that belied their size. Jackson could feel the power radiating from them. They were ready for battle, but there was something else, something more. As the Warbeasts began to fully awaken, Jackson activated a cloaking device that had been integrated into their systems. It allowed them to become invisible, to move through enemy territory without detection. This was their ultimate weapon, the ability to strike without being seen. As Jackson's hand hovered over the control panel, he felt a surge of adrenaline. The Warbeasts were ready. He had only one chance to lead them. "Let's go," Jackson whispered, his voice filled with determination. The Warbeasts, now fully awake, followed his command, their massive forms disappearing into the shadows as their cloaking shields activated. Jackson and his team moved quickly, their hearts pounding in their chests. The war had begun, and humanity's last hope had been awakened. There was no going back now. The camera zoomed in on Jackson's face, his eyes burning with resolve. The Warbeasts had been unleashed, and they would stop at nothing to protect Earth from the alien invaders. This was their moment, and they would make sure that the aliens would regret ever setting foot on Earth. The battle had just begun. The world had barely begun to recover from the shock of the alien invasion, but now it was time for Earth to fight back. The aliens had underestimated humanity, assuming that Earth's people were weak, defenseless, and technologically far behind. But they were wrong. The ancient power, hidden beneath the surface of the planet for millennia, had been unleashed, and humanity was ready to show the invaders what they were made of. Jackson stood on the battlefield, his gaze fixed on the sky as alien drones swarmed above. The battle was chaotic, the air filled with the sound of plasma fire and explosions. The invaders had launched an all-out assault, throwing everything they had at Earth. Their ships, controlled and equipped with advanced weaponry, hovered ominously overhead, unleashing devastating firepower. The aliens seemed to be everywhere. Drones darting through the sky, robotic soldiers storming the ground, and sleek warships in the distance. Humanity's forces were small in comparison, but they had something the aliens didn't: the priime Warbeasts. The first time the Warbeasts emerged from the shadows, the aliens were caught off guard. These massive, genetically enhanced creatures were unlike anything the invaders had ever seen. With their massive claws and glowing eyes, the Warbeasts were a force of nature, tearing through alien drones and machines like they were nothing. Their strength was unmatched, and their speed was terrifying. The Warbeasts moved like shadows, appearing and disappearing in the blink of an eye, their cloaking devices making them nearly invisible to the alien forces. Jackson led the charge, his heart pounding in his chest as he coordinated the human soldiers. Despite the overwhelming force of the alien invaders, humanity fought back with a primal fury, using guerrilla tactics and blending human ingenuity with the Warbeasts' raw power. The humans used the terrain to their advantage, setting up traps and ambushes that allowed them to take down aliens one by one. It was an underdog story in every sense of the word. The humans were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had something the aliens didn't: a reason to fight. The aliens didn't understand humanity's determination, the will to protect their home, their families, and everything they had. This was a fight for survival, and the humans fought with everything they had. The Warbeasts were the key to humanity's survival. With their enhanced strength, armor, and cloaking abilities, they became an unstoppable force. They tore through alien drones like paper, their claws rending metal and circuitry with ease. Every blow they struck sent shockwaves through the battlefield, and the alien forces began to realize they weren't facing an easy victory. But despite the Warbeasts' power, the battle was far from one-sided. The aliens were technologically superior, and their drones and AI-controlled ships were relentless. They adapted quickly to the humans' tactics, deploying new weapons and countermeasures to try and neutralize the Warbeasts. It was clear that this was only the beginning. The aliens would keep coming, and humanity would have to continue fighting with everything they had. Amid the chaos of battle, Jackson's heart sank as he saw his best friend, Bonner, fall. The alien drones had ambushed their position, and Bonner had taken a hit from an energy blast. His body crumpled to the ground, lifeless before Jackson could reach him. The loss was a gut-wrenching blow to Jackson, but it only fueled his desire for vengeance. Bonner had been his comrade for years, and now he was gone. The pain of his loss sharpened Jackson's resolve. The aliens had taken too much from humanity, and he wasn't going to let them get away with it. The Warbeasts continued to rip through the alien forces, their claws and weapons unstoppable. One massive Warbeast grabbed a drone out of the air, crushing it in its massive hands before throwing it into a group of alien soldiers. The soldiers scattered in panic, but they were no match for the Warbeast's fury. Jackson's team provided cover with their futuristic plasma rifles, picking off alien soldiers and drones as they moved. The battle raged on, with each victory bringing the humans one step closer to reclaiming their planet. The Warbeasts tore through the alien ranks, but they couldn't do it alone. Jackson and his team had to keep the pressure on, using every resource at their disposal to weaken the invaders. The humans didn't have the luxury of advanced technology, but they had something far more powerful: their will to survive. As the battle reached its peak, the aliens began to realize that Earth wasn't the weak, defenseless planet they had thought it to be. The humans were fighting back, and they were winning. The Warbeasts had shown them that, despite their advanced technology, they were no match for Earth's ancient power. The tide of the battle had shifted, and the aliens were beginning to retreat, realizing that their invasion might not be as easy as they had once believed. The humans, battered and bruised but unbroken, pushed forward. Every alien defeat fueled their resolve, every fallen comrade driving them to fight harder. Jackson's eyes burned with determination as he led his team into the fray, the memory of Bonner's death spurring him on. They would not let the aliens win. They would not let Earth fall. As the final alien forces retreated, the humans stood victorious, though the cost had been high. The battlefield was littered with the wreckage of alien ships, broken drones, and fallen soldiers. The Warbeasts, bloodied but unstoppable, stood tall among the ruins, their glowing eyes scanning the horizon. The humans had struck back. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. The aliens had learned a valuable lesson. Earth was not a planet to be conquered, but Jackson knew that this was only the beginning. The Warbeasts had been unleashed, but there were still many more battles to fight. The aliens would come again, and humanity would have to be ready. But for now, Jackson allowed himself a moment of triumph. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had fought back. The Warbeasts had been their weapon, but the strength of the human spirit had been their true power. And that was something the aliens would never be able to defeat. The war was far from over, but Earth had sent a clear message. They were not a planet to be underestimated. The fight for survival had just begun. The alien forces had retreated, but they weren't defeated. The true battle was just beginning. The enemy was not merely a horde of mindless invaders. Their leader, Karaz, was far more dangerous. A being of immense strength, intellect, and ruthless ambition, Karaz was no ordinary alien commander. His form, a combination of organic matter and cutting-edge AI, was an unparalleled fusion of power and precision. He had seen humanity's uprising, and he vowed to end it, to wipe Earth off the map and show the humans their place in the universe. Earth had made a powerful enemy, and now, the fate of the planet rested in the hands of Jackson and his soldiers. Karaz's intentions were clear from the moment he revealed himself. He did not care about negotiations or peace. He saw humanity as a primitive, inferior species, unworthy of the galactic stage. To him, Earth's defiance was an insult, a challenge to his vision of galactic order. His anger was palpable, and the thirst for vengeance burned in his cold, calculating mind. Karaz's intelligence was vast, and his technological resources were limitless. He had been watching humanity from the shadows, studying their every move, and now he was ready to strike. Jackson knew the stakes had never been higher. The first battle had been won, but this was no time for celebrations. The alien forces were reorganizing, and Karas was assembling a new wave of destruction. His ships, drones, and AI-controlled warriors were more powerful than anything the humans had faced before. If Jackson and his team failed to stop Karas now, Earth would fall. The thought of losing everything, of his daughter Lena's death being in vain, pushed him forward. This war had cost him more than he could ever have imagined, and now the enemy was more personal than ever. The chase began almost immediately. Jackson and his team set off across Earth's cities, following Karas's trail as he moved from place to place, always one step ahead. The alien leader was intelligent, strategic, and merciless. His soldiers were equipped with the latest tech, and their stealth capabilities made them almost impossible to track. But Jackson wasn't about to give up. He had the Warbeasts, and they were the only hope humanity had left. As they pursued Karas, Jackson's mind raced. He couldn't shake the image of his daughter, Lena, lying lifeless on the ground, taken by the alien invaders. Her death had ignited the fire of vengeance in him, but it had also sparked doubts. Jackson had unleashed the Warbeasts, creatures of immense power, genetically engineered for war. They were humanity's secret weapon, but at what cost? The Warbeasts weren't just fighting for survival. They were causing destruction on an unimaginable scale. Cities were being leveled, innocent lives were lost in the crossfire, and Jackson couldn't help but wonder if it was worth it. Every time Jackson saw one of the Warbeasts tearing through alien drones or ripping through enemy lines, he couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in his gut. Was this the kind of war they were meant to fight? Were they losing their humanity in the process? He questioned the morality of his decisions, the choices that had led him to this point. But then, the memories of Lena, of his fallen comrades, Bonner, the soldiers who had given everything for this fight, reminded him why he was doing this. He couldn't stop now. He owed it to them, to every person who had died in this war, to push forward. The chase took them across Earth's most iconic cities, from the ruins of ancient metropolises to the high-tech, futuristic cities of the modern world. The war had torn the planet apart, but it was also uniting humanity in a way that no one could have predicted. Jackson and his team fought with everything they had, using guerrilla tactics, surprise attacks, and the Warbeasts to their advantage. Each skirmish brought them closer to Karas, but the alien leader was always one step ahead, always planning his next move with cold, calculated precision. The tension between the two sides reached a boiling point as Jackson and his soldiers closed in on Karas. The alien leader, despite his intelligence and strength, was not invincible. Jackson's team had learned his strategies, and they were ready to bring the fight to him. But it wasn't just about defeating the aliens anymore. This was personal. The Warbeasts, once a tool of war, had become something more, a symbol of humanity's defiance. Every victory they achieved was a reminder that Earth would not bow to the invaders. Then, amidst the ruins of a city, Jackson's team caught sight of Karas. His figure loomed large, his eye-controlled body a terrifying sight. His cold, mechanical eyes seemed to pierce through the battlefield, calculating his every move. The moment Jackson saw him, the world seemed to slow down. Everything else faded away. The war, the destruction, the chaos. It was just Jackson and Karas, locked in a battle for the soul of Earth. The camera zoomed in on Jackson's face as he stared down the alien leader, the weight of the world on his shoulders. This was it, the final confrontation. The city around them was in ruins, but in that moment, all that mattered was stopping Karas. The Warbeasts, battle-scared and weary, stood by Jackson's side, their glowing eyes reflecting the same determination. The alien leader's vengeance had brought them to this point, but now it was time for humanity to stand tall. As Jackson prepared for the inevitable clash, he couldn't help but think about the cost of the war. So many lives had been lost, so much destruction had been wrought. Was it worth it? The answer wasn't clear, but Jackson knew one thing for certain. He couldn't let Kara's win. He couldn't let Earth fall. The Warbeasts had become more than just weapons. They were the last hope for humanity. And as Jackson took a deep breath, preparing to charge into battle, he realized that this fight was about more than vengeance. It was about protecting everything they held dear. The visual moment was striking. The Warbeasts, their scared bodies standing tall against the backdrop of a ruined city, ready for the final battle. The camera lingered on the creatures, their powerful forms radiating an aura of untold strength. In that moment, it was clear. This was a fight to the death. The fate of humanity rested in their hands. The stakes had never been higher. The chase was over. The final battle had begun. The war was now at its boiling point. All the preparation, all the struggles, had led to this moment. The Warbeasts, humanity's last line of defense, stood poised for the final battle. The alien invaders, led by their ruthless commander, Karas, had arrived at Earth's doorstep. The fate of the planet rested on a knife's edge, and it was time for Jackson and his soldiers to face the ultimate test. The battle began in the vast expanse of space, as Earth's orbit became a battleground. The sky above Earth was filled with massive alien ships, their sleek designs contrasting with the chaotic devastation they were causing. In retaliation, humanity launched an all-out assault. Warbeasts, covered in advanced armor and glowing with power, attacked from all sides, ripping through the enemy's defenses. Below, on the surface of Earth, the human army fought with everything they had, using every piece of technology at their disposal. The streets were filled with the sounds of plasma rifles firing, explosions lighting up the horizon, and the cries of soldiers as they clashed with the alien forces. It wasn't just a war of technology. It was a war of hearts and minds. On one side, you had the cold, calculating force of Karas and his alien army, using their superior weaponry and intelligence to try and crush humanity. On the other, you had Jackson and his soldiers, fighting not just for survival, but for the memory of their loved ones, the hope for a future free from alien oppression. It was the classic battle of good versus evil, and the stakes had never been higher. In the midst of the chaos, Jackson and Karas finally came face to face. The alien leader stood tall, his eye-controlled body radiating power, his every movement precise and calculated. He wielded advanced alien technology capable of inflicting devastating damage, and he was determined to crush humanity once and for all. Jackson, though, was not intimidated. Covered in dirt and blood, his uniform torn and battered, he was the embodiment of human resilience. His face was streaked with the grime of battle, his body exhausted, but his eyes burned with a fury that no alien weapon could extinguish. The two leaders clashed in a fierce one-on-one battle. Karas unleashed blasts of energy from his advanced weaponry, his mechanical arms moving with precision as he attacked. Jackson, however, fought with raw human courage. He knew his strength was not in the technology he carried, but in his will to survive, to protect his people. His weapons might not have been as advanced as Karas's, but his heart burned with the fury of his fallen comrades, and that gave him an edge the alien leader could not predict. As the fight raged on, the destruction around them grew more intense. Explosions filled the sky, and the ground beneath them shook with the force of the battle. The Warbeasts fought with a savage energy, tearing through alien drones and soldiers with brutal efficiency. The ground was littered with the wreckage of alien ships and the bodies of soldiers who had fought and fallen. In the chaos, Jackson and Karas locked eyes, each understanding that this was not just a fight for Earth's survival. It was a fight for the soul of the planet. Jackson's heart pounded in his chest as he dodged Karas's powerful strikes, narrowly avoiding death at every turn. The alien leader's speed and strength were overwhelming, but Jackson's mind was focused. He could feel the presence of the Warbeasts, their power moving around him like a protective force. The air was thick with tension, and Jackson knew that this battle would define everything. If he failed, humanity would fall, and Karas would have no mercy. But if he succeeded, he would not only defeat an alien leader, but he would avenge the lives lost. His daughter, Lena, his fallen comrades, and all those who had given their lives for the fight. Just when it seemed that Jackson's strength might fail him, a deafening roar split the air. One of the Warbeasts, a towering creature that had fought relentlessly at Jackson's side, charged into the fray. With its massive claws and glowing eyes, the Warbeast attacked Karaz's forces with a fury that was beyond human comprehension. The creature fought like an unstoppable force of nature, smashing through alien lines, but it was not enough. Karaz's power was too great, and the alien leader turned his focus to the Warbeast, launching a deadly counterattack. In a heartbreaking moment, the Warbeast sacrificed itself. It launched itself at Karaz, pinning the alien leader momentarily as it took a fatal blow. Its body crumpled under the weight of the attack, but it had given Jackson the opening he needed. The Warbeast's death was not in vain. It had bought Jackson the time to land a decisive blow against Karaz. The alien leader staggered, and Jackson, using all the strength he had left, drove his weapon deep into Karaz's chest, piercing the heart of the eye-controlled being. The sky above Earth erupted in a final series of explosions as the alien forces began to retreat. The battle had been long, and the price had been steep. Jackson stood over Karaz's defeated form, his body battered and covered in blood, but his heart was filled with a sense of bitter triumph. He had won, but at what cost? The Warbeasts had fought bravely, and many had sacrificed their lives to ensure humanity's victory. But the losses on both sides were unimaginable. Jackson had lost friends, family, and comrades, and though the battle was won, the scars of war would remain forever. In the aftermath of the battle, Earth's skies were filled with the wreckage of alien ships, and the streets were lined with the bodies of fallen soldiers. The world was forever changed. Humanity had stood up to an invader far stronger than they could have ever imagined, and they had prevailed. But the victory was bittersweet. Jackson, standing among the ruins, looked out over the devastated landscape. His mind raced, replaying the moments of the battle, the sacrifices, the losses. He thought of Lena, his daughter, and the Warbeast that had given its life for him and his people. He wondered if Earth would ever truly recover from the destruction. Yet in that moment, as the dust settled and the fires of war began to die down, Jackson found a sliver of hope. The fight had been won, but the cost had been great. Now, humanity would rebuild, stronger and more united than ever. They had faced an alien empire and survived. Earth was not just a death world anymore. It was a symbol of resilience, a place where humanity had proven that they could stand against any threat, no matter how insurmountable. The final showdown was over. Humanity had struck back, and the aliens had learned that Earth was not a world to be taken lightly. Jackson stood tall, surrounded by the Warbeasts, his heart heavy with the weight of the victory. The battle for Earth had been won, but the journey ahead would be one of healing and rebuilding. The war was over, but the story of humanity's strength had just begun. After the intense battles, the smoke of war had finally begun to clear. The Warbeasts, massive creatures of ancient power, had once again returned to their dormant state. The battle had been won, but it had come at a tremendous cost. Humanity had proven itself capable of standing tall in the face of overwhelming odds, defeating a technologically superior alien force. But now, the hard truth was clear. The victory had been paid for with the lives of many brave soldiers, the lives of those who had fought for the future of their world. Jackson stood at the edge of the battlefield, his body bruised and exhausted, but his spirit burning with the fire of triumph. He had faced Karaz, the alien commander, in a final brutal confrontation. The alien leader had been powerful, driven by his cold, calculated intelligence and advanced alien technology. But Jackson had fought with something far stronger: raw human willpower, the determination to protect his planet, and the fury of all the lives lost along the way. It was this that had ultimately tipped the scales in humanity's favor. Karaz had been defeated, his body lying cold on the ground as proof of humanity's unyielding spirit. The The Warbeasts, their mission now complete, had retreated into their dormant state, ready to wait for another day if Earth ever needed them again. These genetically engineered creatures, once hidden beneath Earth's surface, had awoken to ensure humanity's survival. But now, their part in the story was over. They would rest, waiting silently, their immense power locked away, knowing that they had fulfilled their purpose. But victory did not bring the peace Jackson had hoped for. Instead, it left him with a sense of quiet sadness. The cost of the war was immeasurable. The planet had been saved, but many had paid the ultimate price. Jackson thought of his daughter, Lena, and how her death had been the catalyst that had awakened the Warbeasts. Without her sacrifice, none of this would have happened. She had been a symbol of everything humanity stood to lose. Her death had opened the door to Earth's ancient power, and it was through that painful loss that humanity had found the strength to fight back. Jackson made his way to the place where Lena was buried, the wind gently rustling through the trees. The grave, marked with a simple stone, stood as a quiet reminder of the cost of war. As he stood there, the weight of everything he had fought for crashed down on him. He thought of the Warbeasts, their untold power, and how they had been the key to humanity's victory. Yet despite the massive strength they wielded, it was humanity's will to survive, the courage to never back down, that had made the difference. The battlefield, the ruins of cities, the shattered remnants of alien technology, all seemed distant now. Jackson knew that their story would not be forgotten. Humanity had proven to itself and the universe that it would not be subjugated. The alien forces had underestimated them, seeing Earth as nothing more than a backwater planet, weak and defenseless. But they were wrong. Earth had its own power, hidden beneath the surface, a power that had now been unleashed. And it wasn't just the Warbeasts that had fought back. It was the human spirit, the collective will of the people who refused to let their world fall. Jackson's heart felt heavy as he stood at Lena's grave, his mind filled with the memories of the battles fought and the sacrifices made. The pain of losing his daughter, his friends, and his comrades weighed on him, but it was tempered by the knowledge that their deaths had not been in vain. The war was over, and Earth was safe. The alien invaders had been driven back, their forces scattered and retreating into the vastness of space. But humanity's victory was not just in the defeat of the aliens. It was in the strength of their resolve, the courage they had shown when all seemed lost. As Jackson stood there, a sense of peace began to settle over him. The war was over, but the journey ahead would be one of rebuilding. The scars of war would remain, but humanity had proven that it could rise from the ashes and rebuild stronger than ever before. The world would heal, but it would not forget. Earth had found its strength in the face of annihilation, and now it was time to rebuild, to honor the sacrifices made, and to ensure that the lessons learned were never forgotten. The camera zoomed out, showing the peaceful Earth from space. The once chaotic world was now calm, its skies clear and its oceans undisturbed. The war was over, but humanity's latent power, its strength, resilience, and will to survive, had been fully awakened. Earth was no longer a defenseless planet in the corner of the galaxy. It was a world that had proven its worth, standing proudly in the face of overwhelming adversity. As the camera pulled further away, the final line of the story echoed in the silence. Humanity doesn't need saving, it is saving itself. The message was clear. Earth had found its strength not through alien intervention, not through the weapons of the past, but through the will of its people. They had faced destruction and emerged victorious. They had proven that no matter the challenge, humanity could stand strong and survive. The legacy of the Warbeasts, the memory of those who had sacrificed their lives, and the lessons learned from the conflict would stay with humanity forever. Earth had found its place in the galaxy, not as a weak, vulnerable planet, but as a force to be reckoned with. And as humanity moved forward, they would carry with them the knowledge that their greatest strength was not in the technology they wielded, nor in the weapons they used, but in the unbreakable spirit of the human heart. And so, as the final scene faded, humanity's legacy was secure, its future bright with hope. The story of Earth's survival, of humanity's victory against the odds, would echo through the stars, a reminder to all that the true strength of a species lies not in its power to destroy, but in its ability to survive, to fight for its future, and to never give up, no matter the cost.